always good to have you, new faces, old faces. It's always good to see you all. So, we are in the month of December. And the month of December is always an amazing month for us all as we are looking to the holidays and celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or somewhere in between. And our series this month, the title, if you've seen the flyer, is The Light Has Come. And we're looking at what it means. It's very interesting that we have all of these holidays that focus on light, that are dealing with candles and stars. What does it mean that the light has come, and what is the significance, and what are the similarities between these holidays? So last week we started with the topic, comfort in the discomfort. And as we looked at the idea that creation actually always happens in the darkness, we can look at how we were created, that it was in a place that can't be seen. And it was out of that unseen that then we emerged as full-blown human beings, beautiful babies. And we took that idea and associated it with the winter solstice, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today, to recognize that this is part of the cycle of the earth. It's part of the cycle of life. And if we understand that, that's how we can then find comfort even in our discomforting situations. And so we're going to move a little forward and dig a little deeper into that idea. As Pastor Yolanda has already shared with us, the topic for today is transitions. Don't judge the chrysalis. And you know, I was thinking about transitions. I was remembering that just a year ago, this time, Pastor Yolanda and I had just left Expansion Church. And at that time, I was sort of journeying, not knowing what was going to happen next, but knowing that I wanted to expand my music ministry and do some more things and travel and do workshops and wonderful things. And then I also remember that right at that time, just after the Thanksgiving holiday, Malcolm's great-grandmother transitioned. And I remember sitting in the back of that church, sort of in my own transitional moment, and then experiencing the death of a loved one. And I was asking myself, what does this mean? What does this mean, and how do we wrap our minds around transition? Because I understand that actually transition happens all the time, whether it's the transition of a human being into the next life, or whether it's transition from this place to that place, or whether it's the end of a relationship, whatever it may be. I recognize that transitions are happening all the time. And what's also interesting when we think of the transition of a loved one, we focus many times on his or her transition, and we don't realize that there's a transition for us as well, because they are no longer here in the physical body. And so that's what sort of inspired this message today. As I thought about transitions, remembering that it's a natural part of life, but then we also have heard the phrase, the only thing that's constant is change. I would take it a little further and say that the only thing that's constant is evolution. And the reason why I say evolution, or your evolution, or our evolution, is because change, many times we don't like the word change, right? Change has a lot of stuff with it. Change usually in our minds means that something is going to be removed, or something's going to be taken away, or something is not going to be good, or something is going to be diminished. So we don't really like the word change, but evolution signifies growth. Evolution signifies transformation. Evolution signifies emergence. And so, as I recognize that we are in December, as I recognize that we are in a month that absolutely signifies transition, as we're moving towards the New Year celebration, and as we're looking at the significance of the winter solstice and what that means, I also know that in your life, there's some transitions happening. I don't have to be a prophet, I don't have to be a soothsayer, or any deep spiritual person to know that there's a transition happening in your life right now, a shift, some sort of change, some sort of evolution, some sort of emergence, some sort of beginning, some sort of ending. And that's what's interesting, because a beginning is also a transition. And every ending signifies a beginning. And so the question again becomes, how do we deal with transitions? Because we have a judgment around change. Many times we don't want change. Many times we think that change hurts. Many times we think that change is difficult. We find ourselves getting mad. We find ourselves getting frustrated with the current circumstances, whatever they may be, whatever that transition may be. And we find ourselves sometimes even being upset with the people that are in our lives, or the people that are not in our lives, that we wish were in our lives. But as I began to think about that, recognizing that transition, change, evolution, shifts is part of the natural cycle of life, to be upset with change or to be upset with transitions would be like us being mad at the sun for shining. It's a naturally occurring experience. Yes, yes?
Yes.
To be upset with change or transition or evolution or the emergence into something different, into something new, into something greater would be like us being upset with the air that is here, that we're breathing, because it's naturally occurring. Transition is naturally occurring. And so as I began to think about that, I said it would be like if we were a moth or a butterfly in the chrysalis, which is a signifier of change. We would be mad or judge the chrysalis. And so this is where I got into the idea of the message, don't judge the chrysalis. Now just we'll step back for a minute, just so we all understand what we're talking about. What is a chrysalis? And so Webster's defines a chrysalis as a pupa of a butterfly, broadly, a hardened outer protective layer of a pupa, or a protective covering, a sheltered state or stage of being or growth. For mosquitoes, it's not called a chrysalis, it's called a tumbler, which I actually like that. And then we also have the words cocoon or a shell. I like the word tumbler because as we think about a protective shell, and we think about transitions, many times, we think our lives, it can be difficult, and we're afraid, and we don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes we feel like we might be tumbling down a hill. But this protective shell holds us, and it keeps us. So what I began to understand is that when we think about the chrysalis in nature, understanding again that it's the signifier that change is happening. The caterpillar is roaming around the earth, having a good time, and something happens, and they begin this wonderful process that forms this chrysalis. We know by seeing that it's going to emerge as a beautiful butterfly or a moth or some other creature, a mosquito. And as we know that, we don't know what color the butterfly is going to be, we don't know what type of butterfly it's going to be, but we know it's going to be beautiful. We know it's going to be something that we marvel at. We love butterflies. And they're always, beautiful colors. And so what I began to think about was when I think about our lives, the experiences in our lives, when I think about our transitions, when I think about our experiences, when I think about our difficulties, when I think about our challenges, those are just like the chrysalis. And so I invite you to, as you begin to experience difficulty in your life or something that doesn't feel too good, you can get excited about it because you recognize that, life is putting me in the chrysalis and I'm about to emerge as a brand new butterfly. What I was last week, what I was last year, I'm about to transition, I'm about to emerge into something else. And so when you understand that, the things that are going on and in your life, that you're actually just in the chrysalis of life, or the chrysalis of the universe, then that's when we can get to that place where we say, this is a good thing. No, I don't know what color butterfly I will be as I emerge. No, I don't know all the places that I will now be able to fly to that I couldn't because I was just roaming around on the earth, rummaging through the earth. But I know it's a good thing. Now last week I shared a lesson from A Course in Miracles, lesson 75, which says the light has come. And there's more to that lesson. As you dig into the lesson, it says the light has come, I have forgiven the world. And I love that. Why do I love that? Because in order to forgive the world, you must remove the judgment. See, in order for the light to emerge, in order for the light to come, in order for you to see it as a good thing, you have to remove the judgment. You have to remove the judgment of the chrysalis of your circumstance. You must remove the frustration and being mad and angry at the situation, recognizing that the light has come. I've forgiven the world. I've let go of that judgment. And then you can prepare for your emergence. Because this is what we're doing, as the definition speaks to, that the chrysalis is a sheltered state or being of growth, or growth. So that means that you're emerging from something. You're going to come out of something. And so you're preparing for your emergence. So again, as I said, I don't have to be a soothsayer. I don't have to be some dynamic prophet to know that there's transition, change, and experiences happening in your life. Yes, yes? Is it only me? Yes, yes. So I invite you in this moment, as we recognize now that we are actually in the chrysalis of life, and we are preparing for emergence, say to somebody, whoever you find, that I'm preparing for my emergence. I'm preparing to come out of whatever the circumstance is. I'm preparing to come into a new situation. I'm preparing to come into a new experience. Now, what does this have to do with December? What does this have to do with the winter solstice? Well, what's interesting is that every single year, the sun reminds us that the light prevails. As we shared months ago in the message in the fall into forgiveness, that we're at the point of in fall, the sun is now descending. And of course we know what that looks like through our days is that we have less light in the day. The sun goes down really early and the nights get longer, the nights get colder. But what happens in the solstice, the sun stands still. Solstice actually means stand still. The sun stands still for 3 days. And so as it rises, it sets, but it rises to the same spot. And each night, we actually have the darkest nights of the year, the longest nights of the year. But what's interesting is that on December 25th, the sun is reborn. It is on December 25th that the sun, S-U-N, then is born, and we recognize that the sun is now emerging back into its power and that the darkness doesn't prevail. Now, why is that important? We must understand that our ancient ancestors, they didn't have all of the technology that we have now. They didn't have the understanding of astronomy that we have now. And so they were literally afraid when they got to this point of the year and saw that, wait a minute, if we don't have this sunlight, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to die. People still die to this day from the cold, from the winter. Even more so, thousands and thousands of years. And so what began to happen, this is where our festivals, and this is where all of the things that we now know and enjoy as Christmas and the holiday time, this is where it came from. Because there was an ancient belief that we needed to sort of usher in the light and usher in that time. And I don't want to call them astronomers, but really the spiritual teachers of that time, as they began to watch the movements of the stars and watch the movement of the sun, they began to see that actually something happens the same time every year. On December 25th is that time when the sun is born out of the darkness. Now, what's more interesting is that then this ancient understanding, which was an understanding of the physical sun, then changed into stories. And so in Egypt we have the story of Isis and Osiris and birthing the son Horus. And we have in Persia, we have the story of Mithras, who was also born on the 25th, who was an embodiment of the physical sun. And we have Krishna. And I named a whole host of other folks, Dionysus, Attis, Serapis. The list goes on and on. These were stories that were reminding us of the mythological cycle of what's happening in the heavens. But why is that important? Well, I talked last week about the physical sun and the spiritual sun. And last week we talked about the physical sun as we know, the sun that gives us light. And we talked about the spiritual sun, which are these ascended masters who are part of these stories. But the piece that I left out for this week is that you are also the spiritual sun, S-U-N. You are also everything that you see that is true of the sun. As, again, I said the sun every year reminds us that light prevails. Your life is an example of that same truth. And what we're being invited to do when we think about the life of a person like Jesus, we can look at the life of Jesus and just sort of embody the human characteristics of Jesus and seek to be a nice person and to love your neighbor as yourself, and that's beautiful, and that's a way to live in the world. But that's the first layer of understanding. The second layer of understanding is to understand that actually the story in the life of Jesus actually mirrors the story and life of the Son. And we've talked about it many, many times, that you can look at the Gospels and they represent the seasons. You can look at the resurrection and we understand that the resurrection of Christ, it happens in the spring when the earth is resurrecting, when the flowers are coming up. We look at the birth of Christ. It happens at the same time that the sun is being reborn out of darkness, out of the unknown. And so this is why we have those wonderful phrases and those wonderful songs, glory to God in the highest. Because it was a beautiful time, it was a celebratory time. But the next layer of understanding is that you are the sun. And that the sun is showing you what's possible for your life. As we celebrate the winter solstice, as we think about our own lives, as we think about the times when we've been in complete unknown, when darkness lasted for 3 days, or 3 weeks, or 3 years, or 3 nights. As we think about that, and I invite you to think about the times in your life, whether it be now or in past times, you can recognize that actually the light prevailed. That the darkness did not last. That, again, it may have been 3 years, but the darkness did not last. It may have been 3 weeks, but the darkness did not last. If we look at the cycle of the sun, it is telling us something about who and what we are. Now, it's interesting because I was reminded of the song by the composer Haydn, Glorious Peace. The heavens are telling the glory of God. The wonders of his work displays the firmament. Powerful song, beautiful, beautiful piece. And Haydn was inspired by the Psalm, Psalm 19, which says pretty much the same thing. I want to share it with you, and then we're going to break down a little bit of what it's actually saying. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard, yet their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the sun, S-U-N, which comes forth like a bridegroom leaving his chamber, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. It is rising from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and there is nothing hid from its heat. Now what is this inviting us to see? This is, as I like to say, is an astrotheological text. This has nothing to do with some deity up in the sky. This has nothing to do with something external to us. It has something to do with the fact that this psalmist understood when it says the heavens are telling the glory of God, that day to day it pours forth speech, not through words, but yet their voice is heard through all the earth. Nature, and I've talked about it many times, that nature is, we can go to nature and understand the nature of God and understand ourselves. We can look to the heavens, we can look to the skies, we can look to the planets, and in this case, look to the sun. And we begin to understand something that is powerful about ourselves. The cycle of the sun is the cycle of your life. What's interesting, when we think about time, we go through the 24-hour clock and we go through day and night is separated by 12 hours. Our year is separated by the number 12 as well. We go through that cycle. And we know, as I've shared many times, we know it's beautiful when we get to the number 11. We know that 12 is coming. We know that that signifies something new. When we get to 11 in our month, we can get excited about it because we know that 12 is coming and that signifies something new. It is the same thing in all of creation. All of creation takes us through that same cycle, and this is why we have time. This is how we can understand time, by looking at the cycle of the sun. This is where we get it from. And so we are being called to remember that we are just like the sun. And if you understand that you are just like the sun, yes, the sun, we are the northern hemisphere. Yes, the sun leaves us. It goes, and we have more darkness, and the nights get longer and colder, and it seems like winter will never end. But we know, we've all experienced, everyone in this room, that the sun comes back again. That actually the sun not only comes back again, but it comes so strong that in the month of July, we have heat beyond our imagination. In the month of July, the month of August, we have the force of the sun, the power of the sun. And what I'm inviting you to understand is that this is the truth of the cycle of your life. So yes, you may be in transition right now. Yes, you may be in your chrysalis right now, but you don't have to judge that chrysalis. Because what you understand and what we understand and what this time is inviting us to understand is that the light always overcomes the darkness. No matter how dark or how long those nights may be, the light always overcomes the darkness. And so again, I talk about nature because I think it's profound. I think it's extremely profound what nature teaches us. And I was thinking about something this week that I hope encourages you. When we think about this time of year, we know that when the fall comes, we know that the leaves turn brown, we know that the leaves fall off of the trees, and the trees are barren, and they don't hold the same amount of beauty that we experience in the spring and summer months. But what's interesting to me is that nature is always teaching us of what's absolutely true. We have, during Christmas, we have something that we all do. We hang wreaths, we buy Christmas trees, and we put lights on those trees, and we put a star or an angel at the top of those trees. Now, this is an ancient practice that goes back thousands of years. At one point in time, many years ago, these trees were referred to as evergreens. Now, why were they referred to as evergreens? Why do we put up these Christmas trees, and why does it bring a sense of wonder and beauty as we light them up? Because even in the winter months, when all of the other trees have lost their leaves, when all of the other trees have lost, oh my God, have lost their color, there is a tree, there is still green, there is still beauty that exists even in the darkness of winter. Yeah. This is why we say, don't judge the chrysalis. This is why we have that Christmas tree and we celebrate it. This is why we all still get excited about that day. Because we recognize that there is life even in the darkness. There is life even in the coldest nights. And it's not just the Christmas tree. There's another piece in nature that I love, the poinsettia. What's ironic about the poinsettia is that it actually requires darkness in order to bloom. Oh my God. It requires darkness in order to bloom. This is why we set poinsettias out during this time of year. It's the reminder nature is teaching us about ourselves. That even when you're in the darkest nights of your life, even when you're in the difficulties of your life, even when you're in the chrysalis, which is dark and unknown, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know what's happening to you, there's transformation happening. You know that you're going to emerge, and you know that life is there with you. That is the truth of our life. And so I'm inviting you this month. We're going to continue to deal with these symbols of Christmas, these symbols of December, these symbols of the holiday that are much more ancient than the story of Jesus, that are much more ancient than the story of Mary and Joseph, but it's all symbolic. Inviting us to think about something greater, something about your life. Not the life of Mary and Joseph, not the life of Jesus, but it's about the birth of the Christ in you, the hope of glory. It is about the birth of the Christ consciousness that exists within you. I was thinking about the life of Nelson Mandela this week, and we love and honor his family, and we send love to the nation of South Africa. And what I begin to understand again, as we think about the life cycle of the sun, and the sun is reminding us of who and what we are, we're being called to then be the sons of God on the earth. To then, as we understand that we are the son, as we understand that we, as our own individual lives, bring light to the world, we are then called and invited to be an example of that cycle for others, so that they can see, oh my God, well, he's a flesh and blood human being, and he's going through this darkest night, but he emerges into glory, into light, and into power, and into wonder. That must be the truth of my life as well. That's what Nelson Mandela did. He walked this earth as a son, S-U-N or S-O-N, of God. Just as the sun brought light, just as the sun, Nelson Mandela lived in darkness 27 years on Robben Island. But he emerged and showed us what is possible for our own lives. That is why we celebrate his greatness, but I must let you know that his greatness lives within you. I must let you know that his power lives within you. His insight lives within you. His genius is the same genius that you have access to here and now. And so in this moment, please let us stand. We will close in a word of prayer. Mother, Father God, we are grateful and thankful. First, to know that you are. And because you are, we are. We are grateful and thankful to remember that as you are any and everything that we desire you to be in whatever moment our life calls for you to be. We know that you are absolutely the truth of nature. We know and we see you in the sun. We know and see you in the trees. We know and see you in the air that we breathe, in the clouds and beyond. And we know that you are absolute, unconditional, unending love itself. And as we know you to be all of these things and so much more, we know that we are one with you in all of these things. That there is a connection between you and between us that can't be changed regardless of circumstances, regardless of mistakes, regardless of ups, regardless of downs. You are always and we are always in you. And as that is true, but we speak the word in faith and we speak the word in confidence, knowing that our words are always heard even before we speak them. And we recognize now that we are in the transitions of our life. We are in the transition, moving from December into the emergence of a new year, moving from our 11 o'clock hour, crossing over into the midnight hour of a new day. And as we recognize that the earth is always telling your glory, that the heavens are always telling your magnificence, because it is always telling of our glory and our magnificence, we now take ownership of that truth. No longer judging the circumstances of our life, no longer judging the nights of our life, no longer judging the darkness of our life, but recognizing that we are living in the chrysalis of life and we are emerging into a new experience. We are emerging into a dynamic expression. We are emerging into our brilliance. And as we recognize that we are emerging into our brilliance, we are choosing to embody the life of the sun. We are choosing not just to emerge, but to rise to our height. We are choosing not just to emerge, but to rise to our glory. We are choosing not just to emerge, but to emerge into our fierceness. We are choosing not just to emerge, but to emerge into power and to greatness and to brilliance and to bring heat and to bring light and to bring joy to the entire world. Joy to the world, for we have come. Joy to the world, for we are here. Joy to the world, for we are the sons and the daughters of God. Joy to the world, for the light that is the sun is the light that is in us. Joy to the world. And it is from that place that we live that yes, we shall remind our brothers and sisters of their magnificence. Yes, we shall remind our brothers and sisters of their magnificence. And they shall take on that power and that glory. And together we will have a lit up world.
Yes.
For this, God, we release these words in truth. We release these words in conviction and with gratitude. And